So good morning. My problem statement, I went too far. My problem statement is youth aging out of foster care are at greater risk of experiencing homelessness and incarceration. So just a quick background on foster care. Most states are placed responsible for guardianship of a child if they have been found to be living in neglectful situations or abusive situations. And so what states typically do, including Arizona, or specifically Arizona, because that's the focus of this project, is they are focused on providing the basic needs. So food, clothing, and shelter, right? And so what they don't focus on is making sure that child or young adult can budget. And also with the foster care system, in most states at the age of 18, states say you are now an adult, go out and figure life out. Youth have the option of staying on until they're 21. A lot don't for various reasons that are not relevant to this research project, so I won't go into that. So a lot leave at the age of 18. And so the state has provided up to the age of 18 food, clothing, shelter, but they've not provided this is how you increase your coping skills. This is how you budget. This is how to increase your resiliency. And so when our youth age out, which takes me to my question, when our youth age out, they end up having a higher incidence of being incarcerated and homeless. So the question is there a correlation between the age a person ages out of foster care and the likelihood that they will experience homelessness or incarceration? Meaning, are young adults ages 18 through 25 who experience foster care disproportionately affected by homelessness or incarceration? Another thing that I'm looking at is there a correlation between the number of youth receiving resilience skill training or any kind of life skills training before aging out and the rate of homelessness or incarceration? Which states are providing these services and what are their numbers? So essentially what I'm saying is when states are releasing youth into young adults into the world, into adult life, are they giving them any kind of skill sets or trainings to say, here is some tools to help you be a successful adult? That's the question. Research. So we know that 40%, it's well documented that 40% of youth who have been in foster care will experience homelessness within 18 months of leaving care. That is a huge number. At some point, to think that these are children, remember that they are going to be homeless. That's very traumatic. We propose a change in legislation to decrease the numbers based on the results of the study. I will test whether there's a statistical correlation between when a person ages out of foster care by state and the rates of homelessness and the rates of incarceration to determine if proposed legislation should consider extending the age. I will also test whether there's a statistical correlation between whether youth receive training by state and the rates of homelessness and rates of incarceration to determine if proposed legislation should consider mandating training. The findings will be supplemented by interviews from people who have experienced foster care, so lived experience. So my deliverables. Once I've collected this data, my goal is to schedule meetings with politicians. And I luckily personally know probably 5. And I'm hoping that that's a good start. And then I'll present this data to them saying, hey, here's what I found. And then, because at that point, as I said, I want legislative change, but I can't do it because I'm not an elected official. And so I'll say, here's the data that I found, and hopefully they'll take it and run with it. That's one of my deliverables. Second one is I actually currently am a op-ed writer for the Arizona Republic. And so I periodically write articles that they publish. And so I will make this the topic of one of my articles that I write. Another deliverable is I also, it sounds like, oh, Naketa, but another deliverable is I also make YouTube videos around the construct of resiliency as well as foster care. And so talking about my findings on my channel. And then my last deliverable is sharing my findings in my social media circles and encouraging my friends to do that as well. So why does this all matter? Well, as I said, when youth are aging out of foster care, they're not properly prepared because no one has trained them. So think about when most people are about to be 18, about to graduate from high school and going to college, they can still rely on their parents and or family members for additional support. So I'm a little short this month, Mom, can you give me some extra money? And that happens. Or Mom, I don't know how to prepare this meal. Or Mom, I don't know how to grocery shop. Or Dad as well. I know I'm laying heavily on moms, dads too. And so what happens is because youth don't have this, they don't have anyone they can lean on. And no one's teaching them the skill set. As I said, they are ill prepared for adulthood. And so why it matters is if we are able to extend the age, what that does is gives them a stronger launching pad because it's providing supports for them longer, which is also allowing them more time to mature, because the part of our brain that's responsible for reasoning is not even fully developed until we're 25. So extending the age will give them a longer time to mature and giving them a stronger launch pad providing supports longer. And so what the benefit of that is, it's going to increase their quality of life. So if they have this tool set of, I know how to cope better, I am more resilient, I've learned to build my support system that increases their quality of life, so that when traumatic things happen or bad things happen, they're able to rebound or bounce back from it, and sometimes even stronger than before. So that's the first so what. The second so what is what happens is when youth are incarcerated, even as adults, excuse me, or end up experiencing homelessness, it's the taxpayers who pay for it. And so we should all care that, I'm so sorry, that we can provide a better life for these young adults, as well as it's a decreased cost to taxpayers. And the third so what is that it decreases the dependency of having a need for public assistance. And I'll utilize myself as an example. I myself was in foster care. Both my parents were addicted to substances. And I had my first child when I was 18, and she and I ended up homeless. I got on food stamps, I got on cash assistance, I got on medical assistance, I got on Section 8, which is housing. I essentially said, government, give me everything that you can. I would not have needed that support for as long as I needed it, because I do believe in providing supports temporarily. I wouldn't have needed it for as long as I needed it had I had the skill set earlier to provide for myself, to be more independent. Those that support system, learning how to set realistic goals, all the things that can be mandated through legislation. So it's a decrease of, again, it ties actually into taxpayers because we pay for that, all the government assistance. So finally, the people who have helped me, I'm speaking to a woman at the Superior Courts because they're heavily involved with our juvenile detention centers. And I have to share that I talked to her, our very first conversation was only 20 minutes long, and I was thoroughly depressed after. And I just want to say that everything that you can imagine is wrong with our criminal justice system, it's 1,000 times worse. And so she's been giving me data and trying to connect me to people who can give me additional data. Our friend Erica Nichols is connecting me with Children Action Alliance, see what they're doing around extending the age. And then a friend of mine, Beth Meyer, has sat down with me and brainstormed, oh, you know, this legislator. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. And just helping me figure out who I needed to talk to as far as getting the bill passed. And my proposed timeline is CUR, of course, and then presented to the elected officials, and hopefully, prayerfully, fingers crossed, we can get it passed. There are currently 450,000 youth nationwide in foster care. And my goal is to make Arizona a leader and properly preparing our youth for a successful transition into foster care. And that's all I have.
Thank you so very much. We have time for up to 10 minutes of questions. Very efficient.
I try.
Oh, that's really great. I don't see any questions in the chat right now. Feel free to just jump in by voice. Janice, do you want to go ahead, or do you have, Janice, do you have a sound?
Oh, that's beautiful, Janice. Yes. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I gladly accept help. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Oh, Naketa, thank you so much. I pulled at my heartstrings with this presentation and your topic, and I am very moved by where you are going with this, and I would really like to support that. I think that your presentation was well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Julia?
Does anyone have questions like, was I clear? Are there questions like that I could, because I'm really wanting feedback to make sure that it's, you know, concise and clear. Does anyone have questions?
You're getting all sorts of offers of help. I don't see any questions yet, but while people are maybe thinking of questions, I would like to ask you about the data, because I know you and I have talked about this a lot. I feel like you're doing a really great job of managing between, you know, the data pieces and the hard evidence that you're going to need for making the case, and then making the case with lived experience and, you know, a really heartfelt case. So what kinds of challenges are you finding with that data piece of it? Can you talk a little bit about what those are, and maybe some of us can help with those challenges, or maybe point you to some support for that?
Thank you, because data, this part is my most challenging part in data. So the challenges that I'm having is like, I'm getting a lot of anecdotal data from people who are working there. They're like, this is what I'm seeing, but I'm having a difficult time getting hard numbers saying this is the number who have experienced foster care. So what I'm coming up with is what's called duly adjudicated. So here's what they are in foster care and they are incarcerated, which is like, yes, that's what I want. But they're like, yeah, but it's kind of fuzzy. And so it's trying to get hard numbers, like real actual numbers, and not just a lot of this is what I see, this is what I know. Does that make sense? And part of it is I think the state doesn't do a good job of tracking it.
Yeah. Yeah, that could also be one of your recommendations, right? Is at the end, you might be able to clearly state what is the data that should be collected to be able to do a better job.
Mm-hmm.
Thaddeus is also asking something similar. Thaddeus, do you want to go ahead and jump in on that question?
Yeah, just curious about what kind of places have you already tried to look for these kinds of correlations?
So yeah, that's what I was saying about getting, I also need, I'll answer your question, sorry, Thaddeus. I need a connection with someone who has numbers for our homeless population. But so what I've done is talk to people at the superior courts and our juvenile justice, criminal justice system to try to get those numbers of how many of our kids who are incarcerated are actually also in the foster care system. And so I can extrapolate from that. But I've just been having I've been speaking to people and people are like, yeah, this is great work. And I agree and just start telling me their experiences, but I'm having a hard time getting the actual data.
Yeah. Maybe some way that we could also help you think about this or think through this and get some help is, it does sound like you're going to have some uncertainty and missing data perhaps. So there are people who specialize that and help give you some kind of idea about how to deal with errors and sort of reporting that carefully. So that's something I'm going to put in the back of my head to see if we can't, when you get to that point,
thank you.
To give a little bit of support for that.
Thank you.
Let's see who else mentioned in here. Susie and Chen made comments. Deborah made comments. Did anybody want to jump in?
Can I respond to Dawn's? She had a really good one.
Oh, I didn't see it. Go ahead.
Sorry, I think I sent it privately instead.
Okay.
Oh, that's why.
So I'm always trying to think about like what the other side will be saying.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so like if we extend the age, will that even be effective, or is there something, so that's giving them access to services that are existing?
Yes.
Are those even enough in the first place? Is the intervention of extending the age the real thing, or is it really that they need enhanced services even before they age out?
Both. So both. So they're not getting the services at all, which is a problem. And that's why I stated, they're not prepared. but also they're too young. Think about when you're 18, you have no idea, but you think you know everything. I did. You couldn't tell me anything at 18, and I work with this population right now. And at this age, you're trying to develop your self-autonomy, right? And so you can't tell youth anything. And so extending that age where they can start to get a little more maturity, right? They can get closer to that age of maturity instead of saying, figure it out at 18. So both. So it needs to be extended along with supplementing services is what I believe. Because just extending it will help because it's giving them that extra stage to mature, but also giving them the tools that'll just be good wraparound service, best practices, I should say. That was a good question.
I guess hearing more about that in the presentation, and then this super short presentation, but even adding it into the bill about what support services are missing and what needs to be enhanced. And
Okay.
I'm always like this big advocate for coaching services. Like, this seems like a great place for some peer support or help or navigation coaching, life coaching.
Perfect. Got it. Thank you.
Oh, this is awesome.
Thank you. There's some data. I see that. Wow.
Okay, so you've got both HMIS system and Valley Sun United Way offering to look into seeing how they can maybe support with some data.
Thank you.
That's very good. I think that
It was Thaddeus and who else?
and Natalia at Valley the Sun United Way.
Thank you.
I can,
guys.
I don't know if you're looking at Arizona. This is Deborah. I have a good friend who works with this population in Central California, and I don't know if they have any data there or if she would know anything, but I can reach out to her and ask.
That would actually be helpful because I am trying to compare to see if there are other states who are doing it differently and what their rates and numbers look like. So yes, that would be very helpful, please.
All right, I'll do that.
Thank you.